If you wake up every morning and there's nothing, no firmness, no response, no sign your body remembers what it used to do, and you've started avoiding even the possibility of intimacy because the disappointment feels heavier than loneliness, your body isn't betraying you. It's suffocating. And what I'm about to show you could change everything in less time than it takes to brew coffee. I'm talking about men in their 70s and 80s who haven't had a spontaneous erection in years suddenly feeling warmth and pressure return. Men who thought they were done, who'd made peace with separate bedrooms and polite excuses, discovering that the problem was never age. It was never testosterone. It was something far simpler and far more fixable than anyone told them. The weight of this issue doesn't just sit in your body. It sits in every quiet moment between you and your partner. It sits in the jokes you pretend to laugh at. It sits in the way you avoid certain conversations, certain situations, certain touches that used to mean connection, and now just remind you of what's missing. And the hardest part is that no one prepares you for this. One day everything works, and then slowly, almost imperceptibly, it stops. And by the time you realize it's not coming back on its own, you've already convinced yourself it's too late to fix. But here's what no one tells men over 60. The reason erections fade isn't low testosterone in 7 out of 10 cases. It's pH disruption. When your blood becomes even slightly too acidic, something that happens naturally with age, stress, and the standard American diet, it chokes off the nitric oxide your blood vessels need to relax and fill with blood. Apple cider vinegar doesn't just help digestion. It rebalances your pH in minutes, unlocking the circulation pathways that have been dormant. And when you combine it with one specific oil, the effect can hit in 30 to 90 minutes. Not weeks. Not months. Minutes. I've seen men take this blend before dinner and feel a response they hadn't felt in 5 years before dessert was served. I've had patients call me in disbelief because they thought the window had closed permanently. And the most powerful part is that this isn't forcing your body to do something unnatural. It's removing the block that's been preventing your body from doing what it was designed to do all along. But before I reveal what that partner ingredient is and exactly how to use it, you need to understand why this works when pills, pumps, and everything else you've tried has left you frustrated and honestly a little hopeless. I am Dr. Mei Anderson. I've been a urologist for 25 years, and I chose to specialize in men's sexual health after watching my father withdraw into silence when this happened to him. My mother never told me directly, but I saw the distance grow. The avoided touch. The separate bedrooms justified by his snoring. The way she stopped reaching for his hand. The way he stopped looking her in the eye during conversations. That's why I dedicated my career to this. Because the silence destroys marriages more than the symptom ever could. I've sat across from thousands of men who would rather suffer alone than admit they're struggling. And I've watched too many relationships quietly dissolve because no one knew how to start the conversation. The tragedy is that most of these men wait years before seeking help. They try things on their own. They read articles. They buy supplements that promise miracles. They make excuses. And every failed attempt makes them less likely to try again, because the emotional cost of hope followed by disappointment is just too high. So they settle. They tell themselves it's not that important. They convince themselves their partner doesn't care. But deep down they know the truth. It matters. It matters to their sense of self. It matters to their relationship. And pretending it doesn't just makes the silence louder. Most men I meet have already tried the prescription route. Maybe you have too. Spent $40 per pill. Dealt with headaches, flushed face, that panicky feeling when nothing happens even with the medication. There's a particular kind of fear that sets in when you take a pill that's supposed to be foolproof and your body still doesn't respond. Because then you start wondering if you're beyond help. If the damage is permanent. If this is just your reality now. Or maybe you've tried testosterone therapy, only to find out your levels were fine all along. The industry wants you focused on hormones because it's a subscription model. Keep you testing. Keep you buying. Keep you believing the problem is complicated and permanent. They run expensive panels. They talk about optimization. They make it sound scientific and inevitable. But here's what they don't tell you. Testosterone supplementation only helps if testosterone is actually low. And in the majority of cases with men over 60, it's not. But here's the truth most urologists won't say out loud. The men's health industry has convinced you testosterone is the answer because it's profitable. But 70% of ED cases in men over 60 have completely normal testosterone levels. Completely normal. The real issue is vascular. Your blood vessels have lost flexibility, and your pH balance is blocking the chemical signals that create erections. That's it. That's the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Not hormones. Not desire. Not psychological blocks. It's circulation. Pure and simple. And once you understand that, once you stop chasing the wrong solution, everything changes. Because circulation is fixable. Blood vessel flexibility can be restored. pH can be rebalanced. The pathway that's been blocked can be reopened. You just need to know what's actually blocking it and how to remove that blockage at the source. Right now in your body, your blood is slightly acidic. Your vessels are stiff. Nitric oxide, the molecule that tells your arteries to open, breaks down before it can do its job. What should be happening? Balanced pH. Flexible vessels. Nitric oxide flowing freely, signaling blood to rush to the penis with enough force to create firmness. That gap between what's happening and what should happen is why nothing's working. Not effort. Not desire. Not even love for your partner. Because none of that matters if the biological pathway is blocked. Think of it like a garden hose that's been kinked for months. The water pressure is fine. The faucet works perfectly. But nothing comes out the other end because there's a bend in the line stopping the flow. You can turn the faucet harder. You can buy a better nozzle. You can stand there willing the water to flow. But until you unkink the hose, nothing changes. That's what's happening in your body. The desire is there. The hormones are there. But the pathway is kinked, and no amount of wanting or trying will fix it until you address the kink itself. So how do you close that gap? How do you unkink the hose? How do you flip the switch when everything else has failed? Apple cider vinegar has been dismissed as a folk remedy, something your grandmother swore by but no one takes seriously. Medical professionals roll their eyes. Influencers call it a cure-all and ruin its credibility. Every health trend tries to claim it. But here's what actually happens when you consume it, and why it's one of the most powerful natural tools for restoring male sexual function. Within 15 to 30 minutes, ACV begins neutralizing excess acidity in your bloodstream. This isn't about stomach acid, it's about systemic pH. Your blood has a very narrow pH range where it functions optimally, between 7.35 and 7.45. When it drifts too acidic, which happens with stress, poor sleep, processed foods, and yes, just aging, your endothelial cells, the lining of your blood vessels, stop producing nitric oxide efficiently. They're working in an environment that's hostile to the exact chemical reaction you need for an erection. When your blood pH shifts even slightly toward alkaline, those endothelial cells start producing nitric oxide again. That's the signal. That's the alarm clock waking up your circulation. Suddenly, the pathway that's been shut down for months or years remembers what it's supposed to do. Blood vessels begin to relax. Oxygen moves more freely, and the lower body starts receiving the circulation it's been starving for. The reason this matters so much for men over 60 is that pH imbalance accumulates over decades. You don't wake up one day with acidic blood. It builds slowly. Every stressful day, every processed meal, every night of poor sleep, every year of reduced physical activity, it compounds. And your body compensates brilliantly for a long time. It buffers. It adjusts. It works around the problem. Until one day it can't anymore. And that's when erections start failing. Not because you suddenly got old, but because the cumulative effect of pH disruption finally exceeded your body's ability to compensate. But, and this is critical, ACV alone only gets you halfway. Nitric oxide production spikes, but without the right delivery system, it dissipates too fast. Your body creates the signal, but it can't sustain it long enough for an erection to form and hold. It's like turning on a faucet with a leaky hose. Water flows, but most of it never reaches the destination. You get a burst of circulation, maybe a slight response, but it fades before anything meaningful can happen. And then you're left wondering if you imagined it, if it was placebo. If you're just grasping at straws, maybe you've tried ACV for other reasons, blood sugar, inflammation, joint pain, and felt more energized but never connected it to sexual function. That's because you were missing the amplifier, the ingredient that doesn't just activate nitric oxide but traps it, protects it, and delivers it exactly where it's needed most. Without that partner ingredient, you're only getting about 30% of the potential benefit. The signal fires, but it never reaches full strength. It's like having a radio with weak batteries. You can hear something, but it's not clear enough to make out the message. The partner ingredient that unlocks ACV's full power is extra virgin olive oil, specifically the polyphenol in high-quality olive oil. And before you think this sounds too simple, let me explain the chemistry that happens when these two ingredients fuse inside your body, because this is where the transformation actually occurs. Polyphenol are plant compounds that act like bodyguards for nitric oxide. They prevent it from breaking down too quickly. They extend its active lifespan in your bloodstream. When you take ACV and olive oil together, the polyphenol bind with the acetic acid in the vinegar and create a protective envelope around the nitric oxide molecules your body is producing. This means the signal doesn't just spike and disappear, it sustains. It builds. It reaches the smooth muscle tissue in the penis with enough intensity to trigger the cascade of events that create an erection. The smooth muscle in the penis has to relax for blood to flow in. That relaxation is controlled entirely by nitric oxide. Without enough of it, the muscle stays contracted, blood can't enter, and nothing happens. It doesn't matter how aroused you are. It doesn't matter how much you want it. The biology simply won't cooperate. But when nitric oxide levels are sufficient and sustained, the smooth muscle relaxes, blood rushes in, pressure builds, and firmness returns. That's not theory. That's documented physiology. Here's how they work together. And this is the protocol I've refined with over 400 men, specifically over age 65 in my practice. I didn't pull this from a textbook or a study. I developed it through trial and error with real patients dealing with real frustration. And I tracked what actually worked. Start with 1 tablespoon of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar. It must have the mother, that cloudy sediment at the bottom. That sediment contains the enzymes and beneficial bacteria that make this work. Clear, filtered ACV doesn't have the same effect. The mother is essential. Mix it with 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil and 4 ounces of warm water. The warmth helps emulsify the oil so your body absorbs both ingredients simultaneously. If you take them separately, you lose the synergistic effect. They need to enter your bloodstream together at the same time, so the polyphenol are already present when the nitric oxide surge begins. Take this blend 30 to 60 minutes before intimacy, or take it daily first thing in the morning to rebuild baseline circulation over time. The key is consistency. This isn't a pill you pop once. It's a signal you send your body daily until it remembers how to respond on its own. You're retraining your vascular system to function the way it did 20 years ago. That takes repetition. That takes patience. But it works. The men who see results fastest are the ones who commit to taking it every morning for at least 4 weeks, regardless of whether intimacy is planned. Because what you're doing is rebuilding baseline function, not just creating temporary response. You're teaching your blood vessels to stay flexible. You're teaching your endothelial cells to produce nitric oxide efficiently again. And that kind of repair doesn't happen overnight. It happens through consistent signaling over weeks. For faster response when you do want immediate results, add a pinch of cayenne pepper to the blend. I know that sounds intense, but capsaicin, the compound in cayenne, directly dilates blood vessels within 20 minutes. The combination creates a warming sensation that many men describe as a gentle current moving through their chest and pelvis. That's circulation waking up. That's blood moving to places it hasn't reached in years. Some men feel it stronger than others. Some describe tingling. Some just feel warmth. But the sensation means it's working. It means blood is flowing where it should. The first time most men feel that warmth, there's a moment of recognition. A flicker of hope that maybe things aren't as permanent as they thought. Maybe the door isn't completely closed. Maybe there's still possibility. And that emotional shift matters just as much as the physical one, because hope is what allows you to keep trying, to stay consistent, to give your body the time it needs to heal. Your penis isn't broken. Your circulation is just asleep, and ACV is the alarm clock. In my practice, I've tracked this protocol with over 400 men, specifically over age 65. The ones who stayed consistent for 6 weeks reported not just firmer erections, but return of morning erections they hadn't experienced in years. That's the marker I look for, spontaneous morning firmness. It means your baseline circulation has recovered. It means your body doesn't need the blend to respond anymore. It's relearned the pattern. It's restored the pathway. And once that happens, intimacy stops feeling like a performance or a test and starts feeling natural again. One of the most common things I hear is, "I forgot what it felt like to wake up with an erection. I didn't realize how much I missed it until it came back." Because morning erections aren't just about sex. They're a sign of vascular health. They're proof that your circulation is functioning properly during sleep, that your body is still capable of spontaneous response. When they disappear, it's not just about losing sexual function. It's about losing a daily reminder that your body still works the way it's supposed to. To multiply results, pair this with nasal breathing for 5 minutes after taking the blend. Your sinuses naturally produce nitric oxide when you breathe through your nose. This isn't New Age nonsense. It's documented physiology. When you force air through your nasal passages, the friction triggers nitric oxide release from the sinus cavities, and it enters your bloodstream through the mucous membranes. This stacks on top of what the ACV just activated. You're essentially doubling the signal. 5 minutes. In through your nose, out through your nose. It feels meditative, and the effect is measurable. Some men describe feeling lightheaded at first because their bodies aren't used to that level of oxygenation. That passes quickly. What stays is the improved circulation, the enhanced delivery of nitric oxide throughout the system. It's a simple addition that can dramatically amplify results, and it costs nothing. Just intentional breathing for 5 minutes while the blend is being absorbed. Now I know what you're thinking. Does this actually work? Or is this just another internet health trend that sounds good but leaves you disappointed? Because you've been disappointed before. You've tried things that promised results and delivered nothing. You've spent money on supplements that sat in your cabinet and used because they didn't work. And you're tired of being sold hope that doesn't materialize. In 25 years specializing in men's health, I've seen thousands of patterns. The men who respond fastest to this protocol share 3 things. They're over 60, they've tried prescriptions with mixed results, and they're willing to commit to 4 weeks minimum. Why 4 weeks? Because the first response might be subtle. Better sleep, more morning energy, a slight increase in libido. These are signs that circulation is improving, but they're not the dramatic change most men are hoping for. They're the foundation. But by week 3 something shifts. The body starts anticipating the signal instead of fighting it. Erections become easier. They last longer. They feel more like they used to, spontaneous, reliable, connected to arousal instead of forced. Morning wood returns. And that's when men realize this isn't placebo. This is repair. This is their body remembering how to function the way it did before everything got blocked. One man in his 70s described it to me as feeling like someone turned on a light switch after years in the dark. He said the first time it worked, he cried, not from relief, but from realizing how much of himself he'd accepted as lost. How much of his marriage he'd let slip away because he thought there was no solution. His wife told me later that the change wasn't just physical. He started initiating conversation again, reaching for her hand, making plans. He'd been withdrawing not just from intimacy but from life, and she didn't realize how much until he came back. Another man told me he'd stopped kissing his wife the way he used to because kissing led to arousal, and arousal led to disappointment, and disappointment led to shame. So he just stopped, gave her pecks on the cheek, avoided prolonged contact, and she thought he'd fallen out of love with her. They were both suffering silently, each convinced the other didn't care anymore, when the truth was they both cared so much that the pain of failure was unbearable. When his function returned, so did the kissing. So did the touching. So did the feeling that they were still connected, still partners, still capable of expressing love physically. Maybe you've already given up. Maybe you've told yourself this is just part of getting older, and you've made peace with it. But what if you haven't made peace? What if you've just gone quiet because the alternative, hoping and failing again, feels unbearable? What if the reason you stopped trying wasn't acceptance but exhaustion? Because there's a difference between accepting reality and giving up on possibility. And most men I meet aren't at peace. They're just too tired to fight anymore. There's one more layer to this that makes the difference between good results and breakthrough results. And this is the piece most men overlook, because it seems too simple to matter. Here's what separates the men who see dramatic results from those who see modest improvement. Hydration. If your blood is dehydrated, even slightly, it becomes thicker, sluggish. Nitric oxide can't travel efficiently through thick blood. It's like trying to push honey through a straw. All the right ingredients are there, but the delivery system is clogged. Blood viscosity directly impacts how quickly and effectively nitric oxide reaches the smooth muscle tissue in the penis. If your blood is thick, the signal moves slowly. If your blood is properly hydrated, the signal moves fast. Add 16 ounces of water 10 minutes before taking the ACV blend. This prehydration primes your bloodstream to absorb and circulate everything faster. Your blood volume increases slightly. Your vessels expand to accommodate the extra fluid. And when the nitric oxide surge hits, it travels on a highway instead of a dirt road. Some men report feeling the difference within 40 minutes instead of 90 when they do this. That's how much hydration matters. Most men over 60 are chronically underhydrated without realizing it. The thirst mechanism weakens with age. You stop feeling thirsty even when your body needs water. And dehydration affects everything. Energy, cognition, mood, and absolutely circulation. If I could get every man to change one habit that would improve multiple aspects of their health simultaneously, it would be drinking more water. Not coffee. Not soda. Water. Pure, simple hydration that allows every system in your body to function at its potential instead of constantly working in deficit. After 65, arterial stiffness accelerates 3 times faster than it did in your 50s. Every month you wait to address circulation, you're fighting harder resistance. The vessels don't become more flexible with time, they become more rigid. Plaque builds. Inflammation increases. The window doesn't stay open forever. But it's still open now. You're not past the point of change. You're just running on a clock that's moving faster than it used to. And that's not meant to scare you. It's meant to remind you that action matters. That waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect solution means losing time when a good solution is sitting right here. I've had men in their 80s tell me they wish they'd known about this 10 years earlier. Not because it didn't work at 80, but because they lost a decade of intimacy they could have had. A decade of connection. A decade of feeling whole. And that regret is heavy. Heavier than the fear of trying something new. If this makes sense to you, if something here clicked, I need you to do 2 things right now before you close this video and forget about it. First, subscribe to this channel. Here's why. Next week, I'm breaking down the one food hiding in most men's diets that's silently destroying nitric oxide levels. Even if you're doing everything else right. It's in 80% of kitchens, marketed as healthy, and it's sabotaging your results. If you missed that video, you'll keep wondering why your progress plateaus. You'll do everything I just described, see some improvement, and then hit a wall you can't explain. You'll be doing all the right things and getting only partial results because this one food is undermining everything. Don't let that happen. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss it. Second, if you know another man over 60 who's given up on this part of his life, a brother, a friend, your father, share this video with him. It might be the conversation he's been too afraid to start. Silence is the real enemy here, not age, not time, not even the physical symptoms. It's the belief that nothing can change, and that belief is what kills intimacy, confidence, and connection. Break that silence for someone you care about. Send them this video. Text it. Email it. However you communicate. Because the men who need this information most are the ones least likely to search for it themselves. They've convinced themselves it's hopeless, and they need someone who cares about them to show them there's still possibility. Now, the ACV blend we covered today addresses circulation. But there's a hormonal component most men ignore that can amplify or sabotage everything. It's not testosterone, it's cortisol. Chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated, and elevated cortisol directly blocks nitric oxide production. Even if your circulation is perfect, high cortisol can shut down erections completely. You can have flexible blood vessels, balanced pH, and all the right supplements, but if your stress response is stuck in overdrive, nothing gets through. Think about the times erections have worked and the times they haven't. I'd bet the times they worked, you were relaxed. Vacation. A calm morning. A moment when you weren't worried about anything. And the times they didn't work, stress was present. Worry. Pressure. The weight of expectation. That's cortisol interfering with nitric oxide. That's your stress response literally blocking the biological pathway required for sexual function. And most men don't realize how much chronic, low-level stress they're carrying until they find a way to shut it down, and suddenly everything else starts working better. That's what we're covering next. The 3-minute evening protocol that drops cortisol fast enough to feel the shift in your body by morning. The men who combine that with what we covered today see results that surprise even me. Because when you remove both blocks, the circulation block and the stress block, the body doesn't just improve, it transforms. I'm Dr. Mei Anderson. You're not done. Your body isn't done. It's just waiting for the right signal. Give it that signal consistently, and watch what happens. This isn't about turning back time. It's about removing the obstacles that are preventing your body from doing what it's still fully capable of doing. The potential is there. It's been there all along. You just need to unlock it.